Hello everyone and welcome back to the Metra Monthly Update. My name is Derek Boyd. I am the CEO and Chairman of Metra, and this is...
I'm Vlad Stakov. I'm the President and Secretary. So we're going into the October Metro update. I'll be honest with you guys, not too much really happened for this month. It was more on our personal side of our investments that we actually did most of the work. But we're going to go over the Metro stuff, and we'll lightly touch, keyword there, lightly touch on our personal investments, because obviously we want to keep everything separate with what's in the company and what's actually just him and I, individual or whatever else. So we're going to start off with 118 Bamboo House. So if you remember, we talked about how we got a tenant in there, and the tenant is leaving. That was fast.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I can't actually blame the tenant for this one.
I can't either.
They pretty much did what they were supposed to. It's just unfortunately the house just is still not ready for full functional livability at the price that we're charging. It's the truth. And if you want to get into that a little bit more, you can kind of explain.
I'll briefly explain. So if you remember from the last couple times that we talked about Bamboo House, we talked about what exactly was getting repaired and done. Well, some of the things kind of got overlooked because it was such a kind of a rush job. I mean, honestly, we were literally pushing the guy to get it done, and as you remember, he had this whole falling out with his partner, and so he was pretty much having to do everything on his own, and we were speeding him along.
And real quick, for those of you that don't remember, it was supposed to have been fully ready and done back in July.
Yeah.
We are now in October, and it is still not fully ready for inhabitants. That's why we were pushing and rushing.
Yes.
I want to clarify that. So while I don't mind taking some of the blame of us being very aggressive about it, because we are, I'm not taking the full responsibility of it.
So, unfortunately, like I said, some corners got cut, some things got overlooked, and so some of the problems amounted to mostly water related. So, for example, actually everything was water related now that I think about it. So basically, if you remember from last video, actually, there was the issue of the pipes that got clogged up and, possibly put in cement, whatever. We still haven't gotten confirmation of what it is. But, so basically there was a couple other plumbing related issues. We had to fix a couple other pipes. And then as far as everything else water related, it was mostly leaks. So we had like a roof leak, we had 2 window leaks, and we had kind of like in between the door and one of the windows, there's just a section where the siding kind of hangs off a little bit, and water was just slowly working its way in. So basically there's a bunch of leaks everywhere, and so mold was building up, the house is humid as hell, and a couple other little things too that just haven't gotten done or are very fragile. So for example, the electric is very hit or miss in the main part of the bedroom. So if you remember, we had to rewire the entire house, and we got the I guess you can call it master. It's not really master, it's just a bigger bedroom. And we got it working, but it's finicky. So there are times when it works and it's perfectly fine. And there's other times where for some reason it just doesn't work at all. And it's not like just a loose wire or anything, because we've tested all the wires. It's just not on. And we've tried seeing if it was maybe like a load issue, like we plugged in some stuff in like the hallway or in the bathroom or something. It seems it was pulling too much power because it kind of feeds out of that same general area. Not that, it's just something to do with the wiring in that bedroom. And if you remember, all of the wire in there is stock. It's the original stuff from 1980, whatever the hell. And so it's really old and brittle anyway. So I think what it is just, instead of it being like a loose wire, it's just missing wire, or wire itself just literally corroded or falling apart. So we're gonna probably have to rewire a portion of that room again. So basically the problem is the house isn't exactly 100% livable. It is bare minimal livable, so it does have heat, technically it has air conditioning and window units and whatnot, but it's like the minimum to meet the standards. There's not mold in the house yet that's to a point where we have to be worried about like DHEC or somebody coming out. But basically it's not, as Vlad mentioned earlier, not at a level to where it's at $650 worth of a charge. It's more like bare minimum $400 at best. And so what we did is we brokered a deal with this guy, because obviously he's looking to leave and he's got somewhere else to go. It's also more beneficial for him given his setup. He's just going to pay half this month, and we'll look, that's fine. We at least got some money out of it. We're not going completely in debt. And then and we're kind of taking it back out on the contractor. So we're kind of keeping our money and recuperating it. So we're not losing necessarily, but we're really not gaining it.
Yeah. Then we have a tentative date right now for the move-in of the mobile home that's supposed to be the 122. So Derek's been dealing with that disaster, and I'll just summarize it based off what he sat there and told me. Everyone that he's dealing with is completely incompetent. They still don't know who's the actual mover, who's the guys that got paid, who didn't get paid, what's going on with it, what needs to be done with it. They struggled like hell to get out there to tell us what needed to be cut for them to be able to move it in, and so on and so forth. And the date that it's scheduled to move in is literally the exact date that the permit is set to expire. So if it doesn't get done, there's probably going to be a lawsuit happening in some way, shape, or form, because we're definitely going to get compensated on the property because we were promised the property and agreed to a higher price for it based off this 12 mobile home coming in and getting there. We've had to put in way more work to try to make it happen than what should have been our responsibility, and then all of them are completely fecking around and have no clue what the hell is going on to actually get it accomplished and get it done, to the point where the mobile home might get terminated, demolished, or whatever else, and it's completely out of our control because we never even got the title properly put into our name to be able to do anything. So yeah, that's a living disaster just waiting to happen. And someone's gonna pay, and it's not gonna be us.
Yeah, basically it's completely out of our hands, and we're doing nothing more than just trying to push everybody to get it done. And that's the problem. And we're the ones ultimately taking the burden of it all, because if it doesn't get done, we lose out on, one, already the profit for the couple months we've had the park, and two, we have to go through lawsuits and everything else, so it's wasting our time.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to the newest thing that happened there. So if you guys remember 138, that was the house that long ago we deemed that it can't be salvaged because the walls were literally detached from the house's flooring. Well, we got an interesting offer where a guy offered to move his mobile home onto our lot. He would pay for everything. With the move, the installation, getting it all set up, the permits he needs to pull, everything. He would pay for everything to get this mobile home moved in, and we negotiated with him and got him to $250. Well, we went to our attorney and we talked with him, and unfortunately our attorney wasn't as knowledgeable on it as he usually is about most things with real estate. He had some ideas of what we could do. Well, what we decided to do is that we decided to do pretty much like a standard lot rent agreement, except we added in some additional clauses basically saying that if they abandon it, we have the right, and they're agreeing to a purchase price of $1,000 for that mobile home. So what this means is that legally speaking, if they leave it there for, I think we set it for 60 days of like them abandoning it and non-payment
and no communication,
then we have the right to petition them to then sit there and sell us the mobile home for $1,000. So we pay them $1,000, they have to give us the mobile home, and we go from there. Because apparently the way that it works is that, yes, the person owns the mobile home, but apparently you still go to the magistrate court to evict them, and they're literally not allowed on your property. Thus, they are not allowed access to the home at all. Like, they have zero access to the home, and that's apparently how it works. So under that premise, then we just give them a set time frame for them to be able to pick up the home and go from there. If they don't, we have the right to pay them $1,000 to take the home. And then if we can't get them to accept that offer, we literally just demolish the home or do whatever else. It's already in our agreement. They've already agreed to this, to do it this way. And that's just a way for us to protect ourselves without having to potentially go through like lengthy legal battles to do anything else to get it like rectified and done. Because at that point, it becomes a like we committed the action, and then they have to sue us for the damages of them losing their home, and then we just be arguing in court like, no, they agreed to this based on these agreements here, and so on and so forth. That was a couple of little ways that we figured that we could protect ourselves. We've never done lot rent. In fact, we've never really been too big of fans of lot rent because there's more profit to be had if you own the lot and the mobile home itself. But we do want to get our feet wet with it, and we want to experiment with it. And I'm sorry, when it comes to real estate or it comes to business, you're not going to learn unless you take the risk and you put yourself into the position to actually try it out, because that's the best way for you to learn. Otherwise, you're forever going to be like kind of, I guess, honestly, the best way to put it is pussyfooting. Like, you'll be pussyfooting around, and you won't take the jump or the leap to try something new. And in worst case scenario, may cost you $1,000, $5,000 or something like that. So what? You got a learning experience and you learned how to do it better in the future. So now that's not off the table permanently for you. And you have to kind of look at some things like that when you've never done something before. Get the legal advice first, figure out what you want to do with it, and kind of like change it up to like suit what you're willing to like risk. And then afterwards, if it all fails and you end up losing money, well, you paid for an education at that point. You got an education the hard way, and you can do it better next time. And that's kind of how you have to look at these kinds of things. Do you have anything to add on the lot rent?
Yeah, I would say also think of it too in best case scenario. We really the reason we're doing this is one, it's money up front, so we don't have to wait until we get another mobile home to put in there, so we could finally make some income off of it. Two, it also helps with potentially, it's not 100% on this, but like when we go to the county after we've gotten the mobile home park kind of cleaned out and it's all up and running and everything is kind of more up to code, it does help when we go to county petition to get those extra lots, because now we have a fully occupied location already. Everything's already established. We clearly show that we've worked, put the renovations in, made all the effort needed to make it to where it's more of a sustainable, nicer looking place for people to live. And so they'll say, okay, cool, since you've already maxed out the lots you have, we'll be willing to give you maybe so much more lots, or just maximize the lottage that we're kind of already allowed to an extent, and then we'll go from there. So basically it's more of a future potential help more than just the income today. Yeah, the $250 is nice, but really we're not netting anything off it. We're getting like $150 out of it. It's not gonna make me happy at sleeping at night getting $150 extra. But I mean, it's better than nothing. And like I said, it goes ahead and put a unit out there now. Plus, say it takes us 10 months because we got to pay back all of our other debts and whatnot before we actually have any income to put into another mobile home. 10 months of 150 is still, at least $1,000 that we could put into something, or just keep putting it into the unit. I mean, the mobile home itself. So like, cleaning up the lot itself, being all the trash out there, paying a guy to do that, or the driveway that's all messed up. So it does kind of go back into it in some way, but it's like I said, it's not going to really change the budget much.
Yeah. So that's pretty much everything that we have done in regards to the mobile home park, anything going on with like Metra's investments and whatnot. And really that's it. Like that's actually the end. So now we're going to lightly touch on personal investments. Now, if you guys have more questions and you want to dive into it further, again, him and I do stream, and that's a perfect time to ask us any questions you have about like our actual personal investments and what's been going on with that. I'll obviously put both the links here. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. He streams tries to stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. And so we kind of like alternate, and the only time that we like have a conflict is obviously on Saturdays. But please feel free to check us out. Usually we start them somewhere around 8-ish. And so you're more than welcome to come check us out. Obviously I'll have links both up above, and you can ask us more questions if you have anything to ask in regards to the actual personal side of it. So on our personal side, we've actually been hell-bent about trying to convert everything back over to rentals. So if you remember, we've kind of discussed it briefly. Like, we're very well versed in owner finance. That was our bread and butter, and that's really what skyrocketed us very quickly into a position to where we were even able to get the mobile home park to begin with. Well, now that we've got the mobile home park, we're ready to kind of like taper it back a little bit, and we're going to rentals, because the problem with owner finance is that, well, obviously they get sold. Someone eventually is going to come through that's going to buy the house. You're playing a numbers game, and statistically only 1 in 3 succeed. 2/3 always fail, but I mean, that's still not great odds to maintaining a long-term portfolio. So we have 2 properties that came up, so we ended up getting back one of our original properties, being 1 Hawthorne, and we're actually going to go back and owner finance it again, because honestly we need the money for tax time. So the bigger down payment we get and the monthly income we get will help us like lessen our burden once it comes tax time, because we're over preparing. Like, we're already expecting $13,000 in just property tax alone.
Somewhere around there, because obviously they fluctuate every year. Some things get reassessed, so we're going to be somewhere north of 11 plus. Yeah,
so 11 plus thousand in just property taxes. That doesn't include like anything we have to worry about with income tax, anything we have to worry about with federal tax and whatnot. So we're already basically prepping for that. And then the other thing is that we have another property that a guy's looking to just completely get out of. It's the one that called Prince Perry, and that one we do want to turn over into a rental if possible, because it's in a very good prime location, and it'll be more beneficial in the future to have it as a rental versus keeping it as like an owner finance.
Not to mention too that since we've had it as an owner finance, it's obviously gotten in worse condition, which quite unfortunate because it is a very nice home and it's in a premium location, like you mentioned. And so one of the other reasons we want to convert it into a rental is to basically forego any other future issues that may come up, because we can go ahead and take care of them ourselves and keep it in a stable condition, or better condition.
Yeah.
And prevent somebody from going in there and just kind of riding it out and making it worse. Now, once again, it's nice that we get the down payments and the monthly amounts, and we get this large total payout in the end. But at the same time, if they don't buy it and they're just appreciating the asset, you keep going through this 4 or 5 times and the asset gets worse and worse every single time, you're actually losing in the long run. Versus if you were to just take something that's more of a premium grade quality itself and going ahead and just keeping it as a rental and taking care of it yourself. Sometimes you got to weigh those options. Like, is it really worth owner financing a property? Because, yeah, you get something up front, but at the same time, like I said, that degradation will eventually wear out on it. Versus if you could just do a rental and keeping it long term as property values or location can grow with it. So sometimes you got to kind of weigh that out. Like in this particular case, that is one that is just way better as a rental long term than it is as an owner finance. And obviously we did owner finance, as you mentioned before, because one, we were just getting started. We learned one basic trade to the top of our level, which is owner finance. And now we're looking to convert some into those rentals. So that way we have more of a safety net as we progress in the future.
I'll be honest, Derek and I are probably, like, with our knowledge and everything that we have, owner finance is now what we kind of consider a last resort. Mm-hmm. We will utilize it if we have to, but it's more of like a last resort thing because we're wanting to expand upon it. Like, we know we always have owner finance properties in our back pocket. We know how to do it. We know how to run programs with it. We know how to get investors for it. Like, we understand owner finance, but in order to be good at anything that you're doing, especially in like a field like real estate, you need to be able to diversify. And that also includes, like, eventually we want to get into development. We want to get into fix and flips. We want to get into even potential here, note buying. That one's the sketchiest to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one yet.
Yeah,
that's after we've tested everything out and kind of figured it.
Because obviously right now we're in the rental stage and learning how to be the most effective at rentals, just like we did with owner finance. And the thing is, it took us years.
Minor level development too. The other reason we went to mobile home park is because it kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. It is full-on rental management as well as very little development, so we can kind of get our feet wet without having to dive headlong into building an actual commercial grade apartment complex or something crazy.
And that's the thing, is like we have a couple of steps, and the reason you also want to, like, when people say diversify, they usually mean either one or two things. They either mean for you to invest in a multitude of different things. So like right now, some people would argue like all our eggs are in one basket, being in just real estate, which is a fair argument, but it's not 100% true, because the thing is that we also have diversification in that real estate, because there's multiple different ways you can do a real estate transaction. Being, like I've said before, obviously you have fix and flips, development, you have rental, like long-term rentals, you have obviously owner finance and whatnot. There's a lot of options of what you can do. But yeah, it's all about just figuring it all out, and then once you feel comfortable with it all, then honestly it just goes down to, okay, what do we want to do? And that's the position you want to be in, is that you want to be in a position of like not being pigeonholed into one specific thing. You want to be able to just look at it and be like, what do you want to do with this property? Let's fix and flip it, send a crew out there, or you know what, actually I want to owner finance this one. We can make a lot more money this way, because now you have a lot more ability. The only problem is that, unfortunately, that still means that you will forever be the one having to manage it, because like him and I would be the only two that have the experience of knowing what to assess a house at. We couldn't send like a bird dog out there or somebody to like find it. No, we'd always have to be out there doing it ourselves. So at that point, it's just, how much do you enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah, the only way it really changes is whenever you get like really big as a potential investor / company itself, as just like a small to a big business kind of transition, where you start getting employees who are targeted for one specific thing. So for example, you find an employee who is just good at finding potential future rental properties, like vacation rentals, for example. So obviously any deal that he brings to the table was brought to the table specifically for vacation rentals. Yeah. So you would know in advance, ahead of time, anybody that he's presenting this to, it's for vacation rentals. Or you get a crew who's like, you got the head guy, like a foreman or something, who is just dedicated to finding fix and flip potential properties. Same thing. Now, whenever this guy brings a property to the table, you know, okay, this is the fix and flip guy. And then you have like I said, the renter guy and everything else. So then you literally know, okay, here's the type of deals that we're getting. Here's like our CFO, if I'm not the guy at the time, you know how much money we're investing and what the returns are going to be on each one of those things. So that's how, like, whenever you're a bigger company, you're a little less hands-on, but at the same time, you were hands-on prior to put yourself in that position.
A lot of being in a company, and we talked about this way back in like our first video, at least I hope we touched on it. When you're one of the top people, so like obviously whatever your company structure is, whether it's the CEO that's on top, like in our case, or like the president is on top or whatever else, whoever the top people are, they get to a point where if they ran their company well, their sole job is to literally put people in positions that they are going to excel at and that you all are going to be able to profit, including the person that you put in that position, because obviously if you're not profiting, positions get cut, and before you know it, the company is gutted left and right. And so obviously that's literally your main job, is who to put in what position, how to structure it out. We have two more things on personal I'll lightly touch on. This is funny. One of our really old contracts, we made a massive mistake on our owner finance agreement.
This is how we get to changes. Once again, you gotta put your feet to the fire. You gotta
put your feet wet. So we made a big mistake on it, and we accidentally gave a guy equity. So as you guys know, we've talked about it before, how to separate, why you separate out your lease and your option, why you do everything you can to keep it all separate. You make sure there's expirations, there's terminations, there's things that literally terminate the lease. There's a lot of little intricacies of what you have to do with owner finance. And so when we were first getting our feet wet, like back in 2018, actually, I think, we messed up on our, like, because we're on version 4 of our contracts. This was version 1. And we messed up. There's just no arguing it. The guy basically didn't know what he was talking about. But we ended up having to show the contract to a judge when we tried to evict him. And of course, the judge literally saw it. It was like, I'm sorry, I can't preside over this, because it wasn't a lease and an option. It was like them combined together. So we had to go to common pleas court, which requires an attorney. That's basically what that means. If you ever get told you have to go to the court of common pleas, that means you have to get an attorney. It's just that simple. Because there's no like fill and sign easy paperwork. Because like I said, magistrate is dumb court. So we had to pay our attorney like $4,000 personally to get him started on the case to go ahead and try to get this guy evicted. It's unfortunate, but it was a learning curve.
One of the benefits, though, we found this out. So this is actually convenient. Now we know this ahead of time. So this is, once again, one of those things that you learn as you're in the process, and you kind of can get some, unique perspectives on how to handle a situation. So one thing that we learned about this is that, conveniently enough, this was a tax deed property, and because he's in the process of going to small claims or
common plea.
I always mix up which one.
And he's not doing a foreclosure, because he did look over. He's like, actually, according to his contract, he doesn't have any equity whatsoever. It's all gone. He's literally just doing an eviction action in common pleas, which is so stupid.
Very dumb. But the thing that's beneficial on top of that is, like I said, it was a tax deed, which, if you don't know what that means, basically somebody didn't pay their taxes at some point down the road. Government pretty much took it back, put it up for auction. Somebody else bought it. They didn't claim the tax, they didn't pay the taxes. This guy then claims the property as his payment for what he put into the auction. So he then had it. He then sold it to us, and we've had it since. So it's a tax deed in the fact that there may be a chain of somebody of some form of ownership down the road. There's no real insurance that covers this purchase. It's just kind of up in the air, because at some point somebody owned it, then they lost it, sort of, and then somebody kind of took over it. So it's basically like a, he said, she said, to an extent, with a little bit of legal paperwork in the way. So the reason why I bring this up is because what's convenient is that in this action, our attorney is also able to, I forgot exactly how the hell he was able to do this, but he explained it to me. It's a similar process to where he can just go ahead and do what is called a quiet title action and clean the slate of it, giving us what is called a general warranty deed, which means it's the exact same thing as if you bought a brand new property and you got insurance on it. So we now have a brand new title on this property after this whole eviction action is done. So not only do we evict the guy, but we also have
sue him for the amount that he owes us, which right now he's currently on back rent. You guys are going to be disgusted by this. It took us a very long time to finally decide it's time to deal with him. He owes us $7,300 as of today in back rent. Heads up, his rental amount is $450.
No, his rental amount's $400.
I'm sorry, $400. His late fees are $50.
So it took a while for it to add up. You guys can do the math in reverse.
Yeah, you guys can do the math on that
So-
one. That took too long.
Anyways, the main point of all this is that now we, like you said, we evict the guy, we can then sue him for the damages, and then lastly, we also get a more marketable property, which means we can actually sell it or rent it at a higher amount. Usually it's for selling purposes, but sometimes rentals, they can benefit from a clean title. But the idea is that overall, this full package of stuff getting done is very beneficial in our favor for
$4,000. I mean, now understand this too when it comes to dealing with attorneys. Again, we use Matt McCord Law Firm here in Greenville, and I'll put up his information here again. Listen, that $4,000, there's one thing you need to understand. That isn't the guaranteed total price that it could cost. Litigation can always end up costing more and it being extended out. He's just sat there and he's charging us $4,000 because he thinks it's going to be a quick like rip off the band-aid, but he already preferenced it like there could be more fees that could come later on down the road. And when you're working with an attorney, dude, understand they also have every right to charge for their time, effort, and litigation, because honestly, if you didn't need the attorney, then you would be doing it yourself. And if you can't do it yourself, well, I'm sorry, you have to pay an expert to do it for you.
pretty much.
It's very, very simple. And then lastly, on personal, unless you have anything else to add on that.
No, that was it.
So lastly on personal, I've let go of my last camper. It was time. It was definitely like getting too much for me to handle. I didn't really want to rent it out anymore because I didn't feel that the quality was going to be good enough for the rates I was charging on Airbnb and whatnot. Because I was charging $45 a night, or like $1,200 a month for it, and I was booked out like completely. And unfortunately, it degraded in quality that I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with it, because it is impossible to find a competent contractor in today's time.
Oh, not only is it impossible to find a competent contractor on a house, which everybody lives in one.
Yes.
So that's already difficult. Now, put it on wheels, and suddenly it's like finding a needle in a haystack when the haystack is the size of Nevada.
And the funny thing is, all these people have started coming out of the woodworks to me. Like there was a guy working. I think they were cutting down trees at my neighbor's house, and he came over. He's like, "Hey, I see you got some tarps on that camper, because I tarped it to keep any kind of leaks out." He's like, "I actually work on campers." I looked at it. I was like, "Where the hell were you literally a year ago when I was trying to fix the propane lines of one of our other campers and ruined it miserably and couldn't fix it?" And then like there was another person.
Line, the fridge went. It was uneven forever. It had another busted pipe somewhere, and that one was a disaster.
That one was a disaster. This one's a much better.
Really, it just has roof leaks.
Yeah.
It did have a couple busted pipes that we could fix right away, but those haven't become.
It's insane, man. And so unfortunately, I did let it go. I made a really good profit on it overall.
That was probably your best individual investment.
Yeah.
Because realistically speaking, you over doubled your money in a year.
Because so I'll give you guys an example. I bought it for $5,300.
Yep.
I was renting it out for $45 a night. I was booked. Like there was not a like.
And to clarify real quick, he didn't start at $45 a month. He started off at like what, $25 or $20 a
$35 a day.
Yeah,
it was $35 a day is what I started at.
And then he slowly, gradually raised.
Because on Airbnb, I could teach almost a course on it. You want to start off lower on Airbnb, get your first couple of good reviews, and that's important. Keyword that you must get good couple of first reviews. Then after you get those good couple of first reviews, you spike that price up and then keep going from there.
Yep.
And if that camper would have stayed with me, I probably would have started getting away with $55 a night, because the other thing is that you do research around the area and see what everybody else is charging and make sure you are undercutting and offering a better product. So like there were rooms in my area that were $50 a night. A private room. It wasn't like the full house. It was a private room for $50 a night. I'm over here offering an entire secluded private area for you for $45. I obviously won the bidding contest like by a mile. And I could teach a whole thing on Airbnb, but yeah, he's right. I sat there and I made I think I made maybe $7,000. Again, I paid $5,300. I'm pretty sure I made $7,000-ish or so, even after like the repair costs and the constant refilling of propane and like utilities. And then I sold it for $6,600. $600 in worse condition than what I bought.
Yeah. So basically, in the end,
I'm very good with campers.
Yeah. In the end, he covered the cost of what he purchased it for, and then netted like $8,000 and some change on top of that over the course of a year. So
yeah,
he was almost netting like $900 a month is what it broke down to. It's pretty disgusting. It's like $850 a month.
So if any of you are ever interested, or if you have a camper, I'm not kidding. My backyard is completely set up for camper and rentals. I'm willing to do a JV agreement of like a 50-50 split. You still own the camper and the title and everything else like that. I'll literally Airbnb it out and rent it out, and the first the cost, and then whatever the profit is, we split 50-50. I am still 100% willing to do that with anybody because I can net some money on some campers. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. So it's the budget now.
All right, so we actually had a very reasonably good month this month. Now, once again, we'll clarify, we're still not profitable because we're still paying the investors. But if we didn't have the investors,
next month,
we literally would have been profitable. So, boom, we're getting closer by the day.
Our next video will probably be our happiest. It might be a 10-minute video of us just coming up and be like, we paid off the investors.
Yep.
Just
pretty much. All right, so here's where our budget is. So obviously, pretty much everybody stayed the same. As you would guess, everything is the exact same from last month. The only difference is we're losing one of the tenants, as we mentioned. So we are going to get a half payment. Now, I did not include that half payment because he's actually going to pay it on the way out. Didn't mean to hit that light. But he's going to pay it on the way out, so it's not actually included in this. It will be because it's part of his basic termination. And then we may actually have another renter. I looked and found one already who potentially is very interested in getting into it. So theoretically, we may just make decent amount of money.
Also, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I'm getting close, and I think Derek is about to agree with me. I'm getting close to telling Derek that we are going to just start renting every single mobile home out there. They're responsible for all repairs.
Yeah, let's get to that.
And like, we just knock it all down to 500 because then we're eliminate a contractor altogether, and it's literally not our problem.
Yeah.
They have to handle it all. That might be a future business strategy I'm going to implement because I'm getting sick of hearing him bitching to me about it.
Yeah, we're still in high demand for a reasonably competent contractor. In fact, every single person we know in real estate is also in high demand for a reasonable contractor.
We're actually we're starting to become somewhat friends with a very like long-term investor. Like, this guy's been investing in real estate for like 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. And I asked him today, actually, before shooting this video, I was like, hey, do you have a good contractor? And he just looked at me, he's like, I just hired on a guy that I swore I would never use again. He's like, if you find a good contractor, you send them to me. I'm like, okay, times are tough. I get it.
And we have another investor, not necessarily investor, but he's more of like a similar situation to ourselves. He mostly just has a couple of properties in his portfolio. And I asked him if he had a contractor that he used. He literally just was silent on the phone and said, I'm doing the work. You know it's a problem when you are physically having to handle all the work in your entire portfolio because you can't find a guy. He's gone through like 5 or 6 in the last couple months. I've gone through on the phone, I must have gone through 10 people. 3 have actually shown up. 1 we're currently working with, who's hit or miss here and there. The rest, either no shows, ghost, or terrible. So in the end, we're desperate for a competent contractor, at least, you know, above what we're currently getting.
Again, we're willing to put it on payroll too.
Yeah.
That's the disgusting part.
Yeah. So anyways, so needless to say, so pretty much everything stays the same from what it was last month. The only difference is like I said, we are going to get a half payment this month for 118, and we didn't receive it yet because it's not until he leaves, which would be on the 5th of November. So everything cycles on the 5th. So we actually didn't get a payment for that one. But outside of that, everything else went really, really well. So we had 425 times 5 tenants, which comes out to 2,550. Then we had 1 tenant, who we mentioned to you before, which is at the double wide that's up on the top of the hill, the nicest mobile home in the entire park. Well, if you remember, we were doing a deal with them where we were basically giving them like a prorated amount, a very small amount at the beginning, which was 500, and then it went up to about 780, and it'll stay that way for about 10 months. Well, they were also late this month doing that transition into the bigger payment, and we only did a half charge on their rent because they were just a little bit behind, on their late fee. So they wanted to pay us $830, which, nice. That's double, literally almost double what the other mobile homes are going for. So good, very good. Then we have the other tenants, who we mentioned to you before. They normally paid $600 at 130, but then we have that fridge charge, as we call it, because we're charging them a $15 charge for a fridge, so they paid their $615. And then we have the other deal that we brokered with the other people who are in the one property that really we weren't going to do anything with right now because our contractor's already behind on everything. So they were supposed to pay $200 this month. However, I did see the condition of the home as they were kind of renovating it to an extent, and it is a disaster. Pretty much mold everywhere. There's holes in every possible spot. It's got leaks galore. So we reduced it to $50.
Wait, is that one of the previous meth houses?
Yeah, it was the one that we kicked, the last meth heads.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
So this is for 124. And so what we did is we broke the initial payment down to $50. They also have to supply themselves with their own appliances. So they're going to get themselves a fridge and a stove in that reduction, and then the rest of the money is going towards materials for them to put into the home to at least get it stable. And then from this point forward, they're going to be paying for their own materials. So this way, it's like we're not completely screwing them out getting into the house, because it is a really bad condition home. Those previous meth heads fucked it up. And then of course we get the $450 that we have for Jonesville. So with that being said, we brought in a total gross of $4,495. And I want to clarify there's two things on this. One, once again, did not receive the half payment, so it could have been up to $5,000 if we got the full payment, which would have been huge. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is too is we didn't get the $75 that we normally get extra from one of our tenants because they were falling behind this month, so they asked if we could delay it by one. The ones that were paying back rent for May when we first bought the mobile home park, we had people paying back rent. So we've extended that out for an additional month or two. So normally would have had an extra $75 there. But in other good news, we also got some money finally refunded back to us that we did a chargeback on for when we were getting 118 done, and we had to, remember our conversation, we had to go get an electrician because, well, we hired them to do the electric and they didn't do it. Then we got an electrician out there to pretty much do the box and half the electric. So we had to take money from them, which we'd already paid them, in order to pay the electrician. So we finally got that refunded to us. And then we got another minor portion refunded to us. And we do have two other in contention right now. So if we get those back, a portion of it will go back to them because unfortunately the way the chargeback system works, at least this is what PayPal was telling us, is that we had to do a full chargeback. We couldn't do a partial refund. So we had to do the full chargeback and then we'll have to pay them the difference because once again, we want to be fair. But with that being said, we do have two more potential chargebacks. So we could theoretically get another $400-ish back. So anyhow, point is, with that being said, we got $500 and $360 back. So our grand total this month was $5,355, which is huge considering this is basically only two properties. This is a mobile home and one owner finance home, which is really well. It's very comparable to our personal portfolios. So with that being said, our bills of this month were actually quite reasonable as well because, well, nothing got done, honestly. We were too busy focusing on our other stuff. So, unfortunately, it's both good and bad. Good news is, like I said, it didn't cost anything. Bad news, nothing got done. So, good news, we paid the $1,200 that we paid for our maintenance guy to do what he did to get done. We then paid in total for our bills. This is everything that we have on our credit card. Remember, it's the Divvy card. It's that charge card that charges every single end of the month. That was $1,629.87. And I also want to remind you that this was the $1,100 and some change water bill in there. It's like $1,148 or something.
That's disgusting.
So really, our only added cost this month was like $500. So we didn't do anything at all. And that's like everything our company spent. It's gas, food, materials, other bills, cell phone and stuff. I mean, we didn't do anything this month. And then of course our reoccurring costs, which would be the mortgage, well, $1,953 and some change, and then the investment that we have for the investors at $2,661. So we're still net negative, but very reasonable net negative. We are a net negative $2,089.77, which means if we did not have to pay the investors, we would have freaking profited. We would have finally profited after this disaster of this purchase situation. This is without actually getting the 12th mobile home put in. This is without even getting an entire payment from one of the mobile homes because they haven't paid their half payment yet. And this is without actually getting any other renovations done to where we could just charge more or any other tenants leaving and we can up the rent. This is just what we have now. And we actually did well. We did really, really well this month. We would have profited. Unfortunately, we had to make our 5th payment. And what that means is that next month, baby, finally, next month, we are one more payment away. And we're finally not bleeding out of our personal investment.
Yes.
And we can make
it'll
money.
It'll be the best Christmas coming up because I might actually see a profit on this new company.
Oh, God, no, because we got to go dump it property taxes. We don't see this profit until like April.
All right, well, I quit.
Gotta love companies, baby. We got property taxes, business taxes, and then we got to pay some of our debts that we deferred on for like months. So
the company is worth millions of dollars. Yeah. God, man. I love it when I hear people like criticize and talk about like taxing more to like companies and like personal individuals and things like that. I'm like, you have no clue what you're talking about. You have no clue what they had to go through to get into the position they got into, and you are literally the scum of the earth. You are just trying to take somebody else's money that you did nothing for, and I'm sorry. I'm willing to die on that hill.
Which is also hilarious too, because you, as well as I know, as soon as they raise our taxes and we have to pay more, we're just screwing our tenants hard.
That's exactly right. Like that's the thing is that if property taxes raise here, all of our rents raise because I'm sorry, I'm not paying anymore. We already have to pay $13,000. I'm sorry, $11,000 plus because we don't have all the numbers yet.
Yeah, it should be somewhere around.
Somewhere around that number. We're already having to pay that in just property tax. God forbid Derek and I want to take some of the money that we've had to sit there and earn and do all this BS with. Now we have to pay taxes on that as well.
We're a perpetual ramen noodle CEO. That's what we are.
That's what
we
it feels
never
like.
Get anything except a couple dollars a year to pay for some ramen noodle packs. Everything else, forever invested, aka never see it. That's how it feels. But anyhow,
that is how it feels, yeah.
With that being said, that is pretty much everything for the monthly update of October. It's a pretty short month. Like I said, didn't really do too much with the company itself. But good news is that we are literally at the finish line. We have one more payment, which I cannot explain how happy we are getting that done because that is a very large amount. Remember, we made a grand total of how much this month? $4,497 and $2,661 of it went to the investors, which means it's still more than half of what we even bring in. So it's quite damaging.
It's a very aggressive. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I will ever want to do a 6-month investment period ever again. A year is much more manageable because then if you think about that alone, that like splits up that entire payment across the board as well. Makes it much more manageable. I don't think I could ever do another 6 month. If I absolutely have to, I'll consider it. I don't think I ever want to do that again.
Plus the timing of it's a little rough.
Oh God,
right into the tax season. So.
Oh yeah.
But anyhow, with that being said, that's the monthly update for October. We'll see you guys in November and appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.